Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Brett Tippie podcast. I'm Brett Tippie, and I'm here with the one and only Paddy Kaye, known as PK of JoyRide. And for those of you who don't know this man, he is one of the godfathers of freeride trail building. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, Tippie. How are you?
Doing good, man. So you've been building trails and riding mountain bikes since forever. You're very well known for being one of the visionaries with your partner from back in the day, Chris Winter, for creating a mountain bike festival in Whistler, which you call JoyRide, and which eventually became Crankworx, morphed into Crankworx, and you went on to build some awesome trails, starting with the trail JoyRide, which is still around and still gnarly.
Yeah.
And you've gone on and built trails at places like Retallack and Black Rock and in Squamish and, in many different places. And you've done a lot of handiwork with a shovel and a machine and created a lot of joy for people. And it's awesome to have you here. So thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks, Tippie. Just out there doing my thing.
Yeah, man. Well, let's start back at the beginning for you. So I know you came from Ottawa for like a week and then you never left. You're a classic story of, being a hardcore skier and came out here to ski, and then the mountain biking got a hold of you because it's so rad here. And, you're still here and you're still doing it. You made a life for yourself. And it all started, by skiing a little hill outside of or somewhere where you drove to from your home in Ottawa.
Yeah. Grew up in a little community called Cantley, just north of Ottawa, and the ski hill is called Mont Cascade. And in fact, my family's house, my mom's still living there, is within ski boot walking distance from the hill. So
ski boot walking distance.
Clomp. Yeah. So we used to get off the school bus right at the hill from school and ski till they kicked us off the hill and then go home. So that's how we grew up. And then like you say, we had some friends come out to Whistler and we did the trek. When I was 19 or so and we're done high school, and I came here and discovered this place and the mountains, and went home, packed my bags, and that was it. I've been here ever since.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So you came for you're supposed to come for 5 days.
Yeah, we were just on a road trip. Actually, we finished the road trip. We drove out to BC with our skis and stuff. We skied for a week, and then we went down to Utah and skied down there for another week, and then back home. And I basically told my family that that's it. I'm going back to Whistler.
Yeah.
So yeah, there
awesome.
You go.
And so talk about how mountain biking grabbed you back then. Your buddy and ex-partner from back in the day, Chris Winter, he was on an XC bike, and then he got on a G-Spot or something, like a Cove G-Spot, I think. And then what were you riding back in the day? Back in the 90s?
So that was a little kind of later on, a year or two after we were here, that we started getting kind of more tech with our bikes. But I met Chris, he'd already been here, and I knew him from ski racing back east. And it was funny, I was on the deck and I see this guy pedaling up the Highway 99 on a cruiser bike, and I just yelled, "Hey, it's Chris." And sure enough, it was him. And next thing you know, he pops over, have a beer, and then, we've been hanging out ever since. But basically what happened there is back east, we were riding, specialized, rigid bikes with bar ends, and we were, riding hiking trails in the Gatineau Park just outside of Ottawa, and, experimenting with what we could do. And and then I brought my bike out with me and then started exploring here. And my roommates at the time were heavily into it. They had one of those off-road toads with back in the day, you used to cut your bars super narrow so you could squeeze through the trees, and these big long synchro stems, and it was really cool. I got right into the scene here in Whistler right away, and we just pushed each other and see what we could ride. And I remember going through rims probably once a week. We were blowing out rims, and then we discovered hydraulic brakes, not disc brakes by any means, but hydraulic brakes with ceramic rims. And you're like, oh wow, we can slow down when it's wet now. We can ride in the rain. And so it was just kind of a constant progression. And I showed up here right at the right time.
Yeah, awesome. Well, very challenging riding back home in Gatineau Park and whatnot, but definitely very challenging here too, especially on those old bikes. The claw on the hands from those little narrow bars with the stems, pretty much as half as as long as the bar was wide, was crazy. And it was free riding basically. You were a ski racer, and then you were on your bike free riding, challenging yourself, riding this terrain. And as mountain biking became more and more popular, you and Chris Winter had an idea to have a festival. And this is like way back in the days, like 1997, I think. You guys
yeah, 97.
Had an idea to do. Well, no, before JoyRide, didn't you have an attempt to do something called the World Mountain Bike Freeride Championships or something like that?
Yeah, it was called the World Freeride Championships. And it was funny. So something we came up with in the garage, and basically it was like, we saw a hole in the sport and what everyone was doing up here compared to the racing that was available. And not that we wanted to make it, super organized or official, but we want to kind of have fun and challenge each other and create ways of building new tracks and trails. And that was an idea we came up with. So we actually, at the time, we went to Christian and Bjorn, who were, just did Cranked 1, and it was a big thing. And we're like, oh man, this is happening. And they loved the idea, and they were, inspirational to push us and moving forward with the idea. And we went down to Interbike in Vegas with this idea. And next thing you know, we had UCI knocking on our door, saying we couldn't use that name, or we'd be we'd be in trouble. We'd be in trouble. They'd shut us down pretty quick. So we were like, okay, back to the drawing board. And then Chris had the name JoyRide. He came up with it, and then we were like, well, let's just call it Festival JoyRide. But there was some things that happened before that. There was summer sessions here in Whistler, which was a festival that was already going, and it was race based. And then with Fanatico and the crew there, we built a
Fanatical Bike Shop.
We built a biker cross, and at the time it was before four cross or whatever they were calling it now. But
it's derivative of bordercross.
Yeah,
on bikes.
Exactly. So we were skiers and snowboarders, and we're like, what's working in that sport? And hey, like BMX, let's take BMX downhill and see what happens. So that's how that started, and then we're like, man, let's do this on our own. JoyRide it is, and the first one was in 2001.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And then you built a trail called JoyRide, which I believe was going to be filmed, and it was like, you said, well, we're going to have a race. We're going to have a gnarly race. So it was kind of like, if I remember correctly, a mix of free ride and downhill, and you were going to time it and film it, if I remember correctly.
No, exactly. So as part of a festival, we had to come up with some other events, and we're like, well, let's do a gnarly downhill that has bridges and North Shore style features in it, but it's a timed downhill race. And we called it the Technical Time Trials, was what it was called at the time. But then, so the formality there, and this is what kind of kicked everything off, was there was a couple trails on Whistler Mountain that were rogue type trails. South of Heaven was in there, and a few other trails, but there was no legitimately built trails. So Chris and I went to the administration, and we had some relationships there through skiing, and asked for permission to build this trail, and flagged it and got permission. And Paul Skelton Bones was a mountain manager at the time, and he was a big supporter of it. And basically it was the first trail built before there was a bike park. And then I think some bells went off there, and then they got some other builders involved, like Dave Kelly and guys like that. And then B-Line showed up, A-Line, and then next thing you know, we were running on weekends and the gondola, and then before you know it, we had a bike park. So there's a big that's sort of when that
which officially
happened.
Opened in 99.
Yeah, so that trail, JoyRide, was built, and we started building it in 97.
Sick.
So
yeah. And then Beeline started shortly after, or was already just started?
Sort of. It was a 2-year build for JoyRide for us. We started it and didn't finish it,
Okay.
And then the next year when we finished it, along with a bunch of help, then Marty Gotree was in there with a little Bobcat excavator building beeline. And so, yeah, that was probably 98. And then 99, we had a bike park in Whistler.
That's awesome. You know, I remember those times. It was happy times. I remember, like, you know, talking to various different people that I knew in administration, and I remember trying to recommend it to them, and, you know, years before that, they'd laugh, like, oh, that would not be a great idea. And, you know, with you know, some work and a little bit of magic, it actually happened, and it was a great thing. And
yeah, well, there's man, I'm trying to, it's all kind of coming back to me, but we did like dual slalom races local and got sanctioning from Cycling BC, so we had insurance, and then they would open the gondola just for that weekend or that day, and then
the Blackcomb Eliminators.
No, this is after that, so I wasn't really ever involved in Blackcomb. So this was Whistler and in the Boneyard.
Yeah,
we were building dual slalom tracks, and they would run the lift so that we didn't have to walk up. And
I had one of those at the bottom of the mountain.
Yeah, all of a sudden people started showing up, and they're like, "Man, this we could sell tickets." And yeah, one thing led to another, and it's been growing, and I'm pretty sure it's still growing right now.
Yeah. Oh no, I think it is. What I thought was very cool is like you just mentioned, the first event was a biker cross, and you guys somehow got some of the big racing stars of the day here: Cedric Gracia, Steve Pete, and Caroline Chausson, I believe Mick Hanna, and
yeah,
you got these big time racer guys to show up and legitimize the whole scene. Racing all our local dogs and whatnot, and everyone else who came and congregated here for it. But you also had some pretty big purses for the day, which enticed, you know, major stars like that, and it made it legit. Like, how did you get those purses together, and how did you convince Cedric and Petey and Caroline and McKenna to come here?
Yeah, well, there was that was sort of the plan, was, you know, these guys, if we put enough money up, these guys would show up. So big part of the budget was given back to the riders, and not a lot taken for the builders, right? At the time we were just scraping enough by to pay some rent, and we had other side jobs going on, landscaping or whatever, to pay our own bills, and we saw an opportunity, and what I think what really happened was, you know, we weren't shy. We knew we were onto something, and we were down in Vegas and ran into certain people. Like, I remember Lopes was one of them, and he had heard about the year one that Dave Watson won it, and we showed him the video and what was going on, and he loved it. So he's like, you know, I'm coming up. I'll be there a week early. I'll look at the track. You guys want any feedback? So he was totally into it, and he helped us out. And you know, a couple of those guys came, and we worked around the schedule when they were available. And then they all, you know, word of mouth spread, and they're all like, "Yeah, let's go to Whistler." And yeah, it was cool, man. It was really cool. And I believe actually Lopes and Petey bought condos here after that first trip. They had so much fun, you know, not just the riding in the bike park, but the riding in the trails and the social life here. Like the bars are just going off. So it was a lot of fun.
That is a big appeal for Whistler people coming here, is that you can shred all day and party all night. Like, there's other people to party with, there's other people to shred with. It's got the full package, day and night. And I think that's why, you know, Whistler is very successful, and why it is so fun to come here.
Yeah, and that's a carryover from skiing, right? So that's what we do all winter, and then all of a sudden we had the opportunity to do that in summer. So it was on. Party was on.
Yeah. So you've got JoyRide happening, and you've done, like I say, the biker cross. You had the air downhill, I believe, after a few years.
Yeah, we as part of the festival, and A-Line was recently built. We ran a race down A-Line, called it Air Downhill, and you know, now that's that's a staple event during Crankworx and some other. There's some other events. We did a dirt jump, just built dirt jumps at the bottom. I think it was just 2 jumps, and guys like Cowan showed up, and
John Cowan.
Yeah, and the Claw, and the Claw coming from a BMX background, he was doing 360s. We'd never seen that or even thought of that before. And then that was 2002, and again, another huge success, big festival, lots of big names there. And then Chris, my partner Chris, and I were like, okay, this is it. Now we can go get some real sponsor money, but it was still a struggle. 2003 was, again, similar to 2002. A lot of hard work, a lot of we brought in a slopestyle event instead of the dirt jump event, and again, we were just copying what was successful in skiing and snowboarding, with a lot of support from the athletes. And then that brought in all kinds of other riders, lots of young riders. And then now, like, obviously slopestyles and a thing, it's a discipline, so that was kind of cool. And then that's when, after 2003, that's when the sponsors started paying it a little more attention, like the Kokanese and stuff like that.
Yeah, so, they're like, okay, this is happening. We want a piece of this.
Yeah, there's people are watching this. There's eyes on this stuff now. So, yeah, it was cool.
That is cool. So, you and Chris Winter were doing the JoyRide thing together and had a good crew of people, and you worked well with the mountain. But at one point, you guys went your separate ways with the mountain, and you had gone up to Sun Peaks. And what happened? How did that all develop?
Yeah, I think part of it may have been the fact that there was all of a sudden corporate eyes on it, and some corporate dollars getting involved. So Whistler took over the event, and then that's where it was created to be Crankworx, and they took it to the next level, and that was the first Crankworx was 2004, and then Chris decided to create. He was already involved in road bike tours with his family over in Europe and in other places in the world. So he decided to, being ahead of the curve, he wanted to take mountain bike tours. And
he started Big Mountain
Adventures. Yeah, I'm not sure if that happened exactly in 2004, but that's
eventually.
He started working on that at that time. And and then I took JoyRide to Sun Peaks. And I brought a lot of those, big name athletes with me, and we had a great time. And I believe Sun Peaks, the bike park there, was in before Whistler, so they had established trails. They had a great scene already going on there. Local Kamloops, basically the birthplace of freeride, right? You know that. And
I was there.
You were there, and you were at JoyRide in Sun Peaks too. I remember that.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, we just had a blast, and we created helped build a steam shovel, which was the air downhill there, and then also built a 4-cross track or bike across track, and went back to the dirt jump format because we didn't have the funds or the time to put in a slopestyle course at that time.
Yeah. So how many years were you at Sun Peaks?
Just 1 year.
Just 1 year.
Yeah.
Okay.
We tried to do the second year, and it went all the way down to the 11th hour, and it just wasn't enough money involved. So that's when basically I backed away, and I went back to the Whistler Mountain Trail crew and got a job for probably $10 or $12 an hour building trails for the Whistler Mountain Bike Park crew.
That must have made you feel weird because you had this baby going on, and then you tried to make it happen, and then you're back on the shovel, but you didn't bear any resentment, and eventually you didn't burn a bridge, and eventually you worked together again further down the road. We'll talk about later, but you just went back to work, and
and it wasn't really that weird. I think what happened was my buddy Dave Kelly, who's now Gravity Logic, he was running the show, and he welcomed me back and knew what skills I had, and that's when they were expanding to Garbanzo. So they basically put me on a machine in Garbanzo with my dog Leroy, and it was just us up there for the whole summer. And we were just building trails.
So you're leading the charge of making Garbanzo happen.
Yeah, I was one of the first builders up in Garbanzo.
What did you start with? Which trail did you start with up there?
it was bits and pieces of the trail. I was involved in all the trails up there.
All the trails. Yeah.
So
Love Garbanzo.
Yeah. It was hardcore. It was rocky and tricky building, but obviously beautiful vistas and quite the trek to get up there with the Whistler Blackcomb work trucks at the time. The roads weren't as buff as they are now. So
yeah,
it was quite the adventure.
Yeah. And what machine did you have up there? You didn't have like a big 5-ton or anything. What did you have? A smaller one?
Yeah, it was a small Bobcat, probably around 3.5 ton or so. And
okay.
Yeah, there's one thing I remember: a Bike Magazine cover of Dave Watson. Right, this berm that we built that we actually made a shark fin out of it. So that was sort of a new thing in trail building. And then the trail wasn't even open, and then I saw on the cover of Bike Magazine Dave Watson right on the rail in that berm. So it's cool. It was cool stuff. And there's always when something like that happens, it gives you some more inspiration to keep going, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you were working for the trail crew and helping build Garbanzo, and you were still working in the winter though. Were you not for Rossignol?
Yeah. I had my paying job. My real job was in the ski industry. I worked for Rossignol first as a tech here in Whistler, and then got involved with athletes because there was everybody was based here, and then ended up moving down to Utah for 4 or 5 years, and I was lucky enough to travel the world with a corporate credit card and a bunch of cool athletes, and we skied all over the place, and it was good times.
And you still addicted to powder?
I am. It was skiing is in my blood for sure, but my knees are bad, so I haven't really skied in probably a decade. I've just been riding my bike.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
But I do have a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old, and I have a feeling they'll get me back into skiing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you don't have to go and send it with them. You can just.
Well, snowplow's pretty hard on the knee, so we'll see. Wait and see what happens.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah, no, it was a good run, and I don't really miss it. People are like, "Oh man, you must miss skiing," but I did it. I was very lucky and fortunate, and checked that off the list. So there's lots of other things to do.
Yeah, you've skied many deep powder days, more than most people can even imagine. So
yeah, probably yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, it's good.
I love it. Well, you're saying you with your partner Chris Winter used to be racers, and when you were younger, you used to beat them, and then around 13, 14, you could beat him in a race, but then he was beating you around 15, and then
yeah, for sure. He progressed to the next level. I never caught up to him. So, but that was fun. We were local rivals growing up, and it was friendly competitive action. And then of course Chris is an unbelievable skier, and also a biker, tremendous athlete, and great dude to hang out with.
Yeah. Oh wow. So you're working for the trail crew and whatnot, and doing some work in the winter. When did you when did you make JoyRide a legitimate business and just start your climb to the massive success you've had now?
Well, I kept it alive. I kept the name alive and the business. So we were doing some like custom builds for athletes and photo shoots and stuff. We worked with Derek Westland at Freeride, and we built what was called the Snake Pit, one of our big successful builds.
Was that down in Weimar Bowl?
That was in Weimar. In just south of Nelson.
Yeah.
And so that was cool. And then got involved with Rampage. Helped out, when we were bringing in kind of like some machine assistance.
2010.
2010. Yeah, I think that started the year or two before that with some other builders, but we got in there trying to take it to the next level, and that's the big canyon gap was created then with a big wooden ramp and stuff like that. So I was a part of that crew, and that sort of led to working directly with Redbull and talking about coming back to Whistler as a part of creating a new taking slopestyle to the next level and creating a new track for Whistler Mountain, paid for by Redbull. and integrated with Crankworx. So that's what brought me back to Whistler in 2011 as working back on the mountain.
And they called the slopestyle JoyRide.
Yeah. They had another name for it. Forget what it was, but they started going through the process. I think it was Redbull All In or something, and started going through the process, and then some ad popped up. It was Adidas shoes or something, and they had the same slogan. So we were having sushi down in Vancouver with the Redbull management team, and I was like, you know what? Why don't we just do JoyRide? I think it fits, and everybody was into it.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, it's a great name, and it's an homage to you and the guys.
Yeah, and the community days here too, right? So it started on Whistler Mountain, and to bring it back to Whistler was, I think, the right thing to do.
Yeah, that's so cool. Wow. And so, as you know, you've gone through the years and built the JoyRide course. You have to start fresh every year because you have to mow it down. Because in the winter, that's like, the exit, the green runs to get off the mountain. And so you have to like bulldoze all your hard work at all these beautiful creations and then start again for the next season. So you have a chance to create something new each and every time or hone your formula, and what works. Tell me what that was like to mow down at the end of the season, everything you've made.
Well, it's job security, first of all, but...
That's a good point.
But everyone's like, "Oh, that must suck," but it doesn't. It was part of the deal, and it's a huge opportunity. Like, who else besides a company like Redbull is going to give you the resources to rebuild and tweak every year? And we did 9 years. Last year was supposed to be the 10th, but through this pandemic, we got shut down.
Yeah,
we're not sure what the future holds at this point, but the opportunity to, tear it down, pick the brains of the athletes that ride it and that are involved, and even the organizers and the sponsors, and get all the feedback and be able to, recreate or change or tweak. And it was a big part of helping evolve that track, first of all. But I believe, and you probably need to talk to some athletes, but it evolved the sport as well.
Oh, for sure.
So we were able to build, things. First, they went really, really big, and then they came back a bit.
Well, I remember in 2012, you had a 60-foot booter.
Yeah.
60-footer.
Yeah.
And now there's nothing, luckily, that big, because that's a huck, man.
Well, and it was straight down the fall line, too, which is a no-no in building world. So... yeah, we learned the risks and the rewards, and paramount was safety for the riders. It might not seem that way, but you look at how that track has evolved and the tricks and the runs that go down, and a lot of it is putting safety into mind, and how can we send the riders into the air to do their best tricks and push themselves, but also have them land and move on to the next feature. So that was always a big problem to work with.
So you're doing that by moderating speed, or hopefully not having them having to touch their brakes.
Yeah. To
have the right speed for the jump to make it to the landing and be able to do a trick. You wanted to have a flow run with minimal pedaling and minimal braking. Is that the goal?
Yeah. That's there's a basic way to look at that. A braking position is you're being defensive, so you're not really on top of your bike when you're on your brakes, but when you're sort of pumping or even pedaling or searching for speed, that's an offensive position, and then that's much safer when you're going into a big ramp. You're way positioned way better on your bike. So that slope where we do the run at the base of Whistler is extremely steep compared to all the other slope style courses.
It's a steep grade, isn't it?
It's a steep grade, so that's why it snakes down. And the other thing is there's a lift that goes right through the middle of it, with not only overhead wires but people on it. And then underground is full of power and water and snowmaking and bedrock. So you've
got maps of where the no-go zones are?
That's in my head, Tippie. I can't we don't have real maps, but it's
Real men don't use maps.
but they're like, oh, let's do this and this and this, and it was my job to figure out, okay, what's actually possible.
Yeah.
What could we, how do we make that work with the speed and the hazards in ground and above ground. So it was really fun. It's a very challenging build, but it was a blessing in disguise to be able to do it over and over and over, because you just hone that in and make it better and better and better.
Dial it in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you look at, it's funny, there's every now and then I'll go revisit and I'll look at the first year I built it and I'm just like, oh my God, what was I doing? So, and then, and then you see it, the evolution of the build, and it's something that's, it's something we worked hard at.
So what athletes would you confer with? Like, obviously Brandon, I know, helped out, and, did you have like some guys were only there for a couple of years, like, and you got a second time, like Ryan Nyquist, I'm sure you've dealt with riders who've been there for a long time to come and help you, give advice and whatnot. Like, who was instrumental in giving you, specific
the McCalls, the Claws, like anybody who'd ridden it for over and over and over for years was instrumental. And Semenuk was huge. He not only is he a visionary, you see him with his riding and his videos, but he was a big part of helping solve some problems with that course. Like, that ramp's too steep, or all kinds of little details, right, that no one would ever know. So. Yeah. And, I'm a mountain biker. I love riding a bike, and I feel my skills are good, but I'd never go off ramps like that. So it wasn't my call to make the final, the final details. Luckily enough, I had over the years, some really good employees, some staff, and
guys who ripped, like Justin Wiper,
yeah,
and amongst others.
Yeah. Yeah, and Dustin and Austin, and lots of kids that capable of riding this stuff. Who I would let them place the ramp or shape the landing, and then I'd come back and I'd be looking at them like, really? You think so? Okay, bring your bike tomorrow. Bring your helmet and bring your bike. And let's see this.
Let's see it work.
So that's how we did it. And if it didn't work, then, we would tweak it, and we work our way from top to bottom and make one feature link to the other. It's a huge project. And again, without resources of a company like Redbull, we would never be able to build what we did, compared to when Chris Winter and I were doing, we were, on a shoestring budget, right?
Yeah, totally.
So I was very fortunate to have that opportunity.
So how would you, if things didn't work, you had to like reposition ramps, which was easier because the landing's set, so you can move the ramp. But like say, like the log cabin. What if did that work the first time?
Well, so it's funny you bring that up, because one year the landing was too far off the house, the log house with the whale tail on the roof at the time.
Yeah.
When it was right in the middle, and so Wiper rode it, came up short, rode it again, came up short. It's like, okay, guess what, boys? Tomorrow, we're tearing this landing down and moving it. So,
oh no.
So yeah, you gotta do it, and that's, I'm on, as a business owner, you're on a fixed contract, a fixed budget, and you got to eat that just to make it work and make it safe as possible. And the guys did a really good job. I remember at the time it was hot and sunny, and everybody went on it, and within 2 or 3 days we were testing it again with a new landing. So yeah, it's all doable. You just gotta do it.
Yeah. Now, is there any years that stick out in your mind where the distances were not as dialed as some years, and people had to like throw some extra pedal strokes or do some brake taps? Is there a few years where it could have been better?
For sure. Yeah, that was the first few years. We were experimenting with, we didn't even have a real design map. We had a cartoon from Scott Dixon, and he was great to work with, but it was a hand drawing. It's like, okay, make it look like this, right? So
yeah.
So, the first few years were tricky with the radius of the ramps, and you can't just change that because they're big wooden ramps. that cost quite a bit of money to build. So we were dealing with some ramps that weren't ideal. We had some jumps going down the fall line, lots of braking at points. And so it was, without the collaboration though of the riders and the other builders and staff and sponsors, we probably would have had a terrible course for 9 years. But we ended up, I feel we did the best we could, and we ended up having some pretty good tracks later on.
Yeah, for sure. So once you got something that's working good, were you taking measurements and saying, this is what we need to do next year? Because like I say, you got to start all over again, right? So you'd the cabin, off on Whaletail, the landing has to be approximately this and whatnot, and you'd have everything in the little black book?
Yeah, not really. It wasn't measurements. It was, okay, this ramp works here, that ramp works there. This part of the slope we need to cut across right at this point. And a lot of it had to do with, okay, there's a bunch of dirt right at this spot. But we never really, even when you're building it, Tippie, we never even really pull a tape measure to see the gaps. Like the only time we ever did is when the for the announcers or for the media who wanted to know how big is that jump. I'm like, I don't know. I'm gonna have to measure to tell you. And it was already built by then. So
yeah.
So it was more just eyeing it up and feel and testing it, right? So and I think the other thing I always used to say, just kind of as a joke, but it's probably true, is if we wrote down dimensions on paper and something didn't work, then perhaps I'd be liable. So I just always avoided that.
Fair enough. Yeah, just make it organic.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, interesting. And how about, what year was it? 2007. I think Ben Boyko won in 2007. And I disappeared for a few years and then came back to the scene. And I showed up in 2007 and I was like, whoa, people are going bigger than a few years ago. And there was the two massive television jumps. There was the one on the far left halfway down, which was huge.
Yeah, a little drop to sniper, little landing.
Yeah, pretty sniper landing for that big a drop.
Yeah, I remember Montgomery with a hardtail going off that, and you're just like, oh my God, is he going to make it?
Yeah. Oh.
But those were Cowan builds, right? So those were, and he did his own, put his own signature on it, and at the time was progressing the sport in a certain way. But when we came in, it was a whole different philosophy, right? It wasn't. It was
because the jumbotron jump at the end, that was huge, and the landing was kind of flat, and the riders were scared of it. Actually, they didn't really want to trick it, and I think Ben Boyko 360'd it for the winning run in his first run, and then he went and did it again for fun. And I thought that was nuts. I was like, his victory lap was as good or better than his winning run. Yeah. And they were like, people were riding like that was too flat a landing to trick off of, and
that's a very difficult
you writing those
spot. Notes? No, it's just
and thinking if I had my way here and when she eventually did.
Yeah, I never knew at the time I would be doing that again. So no, I wasn't. I was watching those for sure as a fan. I lived here in town still, but that then we were asked to recreate that jumbotron feature, which we did for a few years. And what I can attest to is building that landing at the bottom was the most challenging landing I have ever built.
Really?
To make it safe. It's just, it's bony down there. It's narrow. There's 10 different tracks all coming. And it's tricky. It's really tricky. And again, it's down the fall line, which is in builder's code, that's a no-no for a jump, never down the fall line. But you have no choice there.
Yeah.
So
it's the end of the finish corral, right?
Yeah. So we always looked at other things like, can we finish the event higher up? But then the rider's not, coming into the crowd and throwing his bike, and so it was a key thing to figure out. And I don't think we ever made it perfect, but I think we did a pretty good job.
Yeah. Yeah. So, no, I agree. So when you go to watch these slope styles, do you have a specific spot where you're like, okay, this is the best spot to watch from? I can see everything from here. Or are you cruising around with your crew still working, or do you get to sit back on slopestyle day and enjoy the show, or what's your slopestyle day look like?
Yeah, it's varied over the years. There's been some casual, beer ticket VIP zones, which was fun, but And then other years where you're running around with the rake, and I'm not sure, why, what's the rhyme or reason, but the one that stands out was the year that my daughter was born during the slopestyle course. So I was in the hospital with my wife, and yeah, my wife went into labor, and sure enough, it's right when the event was on, and yeah, so
You're like, I gotta go.
yeah, I was still watching it on the computer, but yeah, we were in the hospital having a baby.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Well, congratulations. So it's been a great success. The slopestyle, it's created careers, and it's the big marquee event of Crankworx, which has been off the hook for entertainment value and for many different things, for people meeting and bonding. And I met my wife at Crankworx.
Yes.
And
yes.
I asked her to marry me in front of like 20,000 people in the finish crawl
Yes,
with my microphone.
Yeah.
And
cool.
and then we got married at Crankworx, and things like that, and just all the riding and the photographers and the fans and the everyone who collects there, and it's just been a big thing. And then the weekends with the big slopestyle, and it's a big deal. And
yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's like who would have thunk it,
Yeah, who would have thunk? Although we knew there was something there way back in the day. That's because we had the World Ski and Snowboard Festival happening, right? So they had the Big Air, the Snowboard Big Air. There was the West Beach, or anyway, those are all foggy days. But we were having big parties in the spring in Whistler. And it's like we can have this in the summer. It could be bigger.
Yeah.
Biking is bigger than skiing and snowboarding globally.
Yeah.
So come on,
because there's not snow everywhere, but there's dirt everywhere.
There's if you look at the numbers of bikes in the world, it's makes skiing and snowboarding it's tiny. So that's the Chris and I give Chris a lot of credit. We saw a vision there, and we went for it. And if anyone has a vision, they go for it, because we were just regular dudes having a good time, honestly. So
that love mountain biking. And you guys were good riders, and had passion in the sport. So that's what inspires and gives momentum to things more than anything, more than talent, more than knowledge, more than anything is
we just want
passion.
We just want to have a good time, Tippie.
Yeah, I know, right? Why wouldn't we?
Avoid the real job and have some fun. So yeah, that was good.
So let's move on to some other things you've done. You've created a bunch of trails up at one of my favorite places to ride in the world, Retallack.
Yes.
Retallack is like a godsend. They have a very successful cat skiing and cat snowboarding operation there. Cool lodge. And they wanted to make trails and do shuttles and heli drops with mountain bikes.
Yeah.
But they needed some trails built, and you did some work up there. Tell us about the creation of the trails at Retallack.
Yeah, that was really a cool thing to be involved in, and working with Mac and Phil the Walrus.
Big mustache.
Yeah, that relationship was built when I was in the ski industry with Rossi. We would go there every year with the team and ski there, and those guys were great, and we had a good time. And then when they started venturing towards biking, and it was a no-brainer to sort of reach out and say, hey, I'm in, let's do this. So there was a couple of years, it was super cool because you've been there. So I spent basically 2 summers there, not full time, but 2 or 3 weeks at a time, back and forth. And I was solo at the lodge, and off grid in an old ghost town, and just living in the bush, building trails with grizzly bears around, and going back, just passing out because I was doing 12-hour days, and then wake up and just go back up there. And that was sort of, for me, the heyday of my building career. And man, I think we got in 2 summers. There's some other crews up there every now and then too, like Riley McIntosh was up there for a while, and I think we got in almost 100 kilometers of trails in 2 years, and just a bunch of people going for it. So,
wow.
Yeah, it was.
Say that again. 100 kilometers of trails in 2 years.
2 or 3 years, yeah, and it was.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty sure it's something like that. You'd have to talk to Phil.
Yeah.
Get the real stats.
That's amazing.
But a lot of trail went down, and a lot of quality trail, and it was beautiful terrain, and really, really good building, and the
nice dirt.
The forest,
some
nice
rocks,
dirt.
but some
Yeah,
nice
the
dirt
forest
too.
is just unbelievable there. You know, it's in between 2 lakes, so it's actually almost a rainforest there. It gets weather that other places don't.
Little microcosm.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it was fun, and they're all like, "Oh, did you see Dorothy?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, "Yeah, the ghost that lives over there. You see?" I'm like, no, but I'm not really looking for her." So.
Yeah.
But no,
if you don't pay your exorcist, do you get repossessed?
There's the jokes. I was waiting for them. But
Yeah.
it was a great experience, and kudos to those guys. They had the balls to go for it, and I'm pretty sure it's been growing, and it's a successful thing for them.
So what about mapping those trails out? Like, did you have a contract and they were like, ribboned out and they had an idea, or were you? They said, make us some trails,
Yeah,
and then, or did you have to like hike through the woods a bunch before you actually stuck a shovel in?
Yeah, there's quite a bit of scouting missions for sure, and there was some zones because it was a recreational tenure, so they had to kind of stick to certain zones to build, and there's lots of room for creativity as far as the builders go. But yeah, it was something like that. You have sort of a point A and point B to get to, but the in between is build as you go and see what works. Yeah, that's sort of how we do it.
There's one section that I love. Did you help in the Curly Bowl section?
No, that goes right across.
Yeah, or no, not that diagonal one. It's one. It's not. Is it off Texas Peak? And it's a bowl that has these turns, and it's got these catch berms, these catch right-handers, all the way down into it.
If it's 5 feet wide and looks like it's built with a machine, maybe that was me. But there's a lot of pickaxe stuff in there too. Like the trails that are about 2 or 3 feet wide were all built by hand, and that wasn't me.
Yeah.
But it was very all talented builders in there. Everyone had the similar kind of theme as far as flow and even speed. Like there, you could open it up a bit, and yeah, it's cool because it doesn't get the traffic that a bike park does, so that you don't have to worry about the brake bumps as much.
Yeah.
So you can let them ride. Yeah.
So as a bonus for you, like, do you have a lifetime pass there, or when you go back, you have to I have to do trail maintenance and some trail inspection here, and just go rip Retallack for free?
It's.
Or do you charge them? I'm doing some quality control here.
Some bill.
Yeah.
I'm sure I can go there whenever I want. I haven't really taken advantage of that. I actually haven't been back there in years. Quite busy.
I'd be flexing that up, bro.
But yeah, well, maybe you should invite me.
Yeah.
Next time you go.
Okay.
So
I will.
I'd like to ride with some friends out there, and not just on my own. So.
Yeah, totally. We're working here. Just have like.
Well, maybe it's gonna be part 2 of the podcast, right? So we could do it at Retallack, and we can talk really about how we built the trail.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Oh, the gears are going. I like it. Business mind here.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, the first time I went to Retallack, it blew my mind, and
it's a pretty special place.
Yeah. I remember seeing, actually, was it before I went there? I saw a video with Aggie just killing it there, and I was like, that's amazing. And then when I finally got to go there, it just blew my mind. And you shuttle for a day and then go heli dropping off into the Alpine, and it's just so good. Like,
have you been there on your snowboard?
I've never been there on my snowboard.
Yeah, you got to do that.
I know. If you're listening to this, Mac and Phil and Johnny Smoke, I need to be there on my snowboard.
It's
steep and deep.
It's steep. The trees are spread out. The snow, like I say, it's got that lake effect. So the snow in the Selkirks is just
Richie's been there like a dozen times.
Oh,
I've never been there. It's not fair. I'm like, I need to go there.
Champagne Kootenai powder right there, buddy.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Okay. It's on my bucket list for sure.
Right. I'll join you for that trip.
Okay, for sure.
My knee. I'll put up with my sore knees for that.
Yeah, it'd be worth it. All right, let's bring things a little closer to home. But before we do, we're gonna do a special little feature for our title sponsor, Ride Wrap, called The Crash of Your Life. What's been your gnarliest crash? Because we're sponsored by Ride Wrap, and they have a protective film they cover bikes with, and so we're doing a little feature here. Tell us, or the gnarliest crash you've ever seen. Actually, either one. What's your best crash that you've ever had, or the best crash you've ever seen?
I think I'm gonna have to give this one to my buddy Al Leclerc, who is just a beast of a person, but not like he's not by any means a professional rider, but he's a passionate rider.
Yeah.
And very, just an amazing human being with tons of energy, similar to you.
Yeah.
I remember riding with him once in 19th hole, and probably a little beyond his...
Which is a black diamond in Squamish.
Yeah, or a double black diamond.
Maybe double black sections.
So we were on one of the steeper sections and going way too fast down it, and Al loses it. And instead of just kind of falling down, he reaches out for a tree, and he grabs the tree, and his bike just goes flying, and he did sort of this sideways ragdoll spin, and I don't know, like 20, 30 feet down the trail. And it was right in front of me.
It's a chunky, rocky trail, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that was, at least visually, the first one that comes to mind. That's right there. And another one that's kind of similar was...
Was he okay?
He was okay, yeah. His bike, I think, was a little banged up.
Should have had the Ride Wrap protective.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Ta-da!
And then the other good one, and that one reminded me of it, was Psychosis. So we raced that one back in the day on Hardtails with the Chromag crew, and going down Dead Dog there. I think my first time down, I couldn't believe how steep and sustained it was, and I couldn't slow down, so I basically just dropped my bike, and my bike rolled all the way down the pitch. I don't know, like 100, 200 meters.
Hundreds of feet.
This kept going and going and going, and I'm like, this bike's going to be done. But the paint job had some scratches, of course, but the bike was fine.
It still worked.
I was able to do the event the next day, and I rode down in what we call the tripod move, where you got one foot on the ground, but yeah, that's
outrigger.
Yeah, but that's if anyone's ridden that, they know what I'm talking about. But that's probably the steepest, gnarliest pitch I've ever been down or watched my bike roll down.
Very truthful story. Oh, that's funny. I've got a funny story about 19th hole that you mentioned. 19th hole. When I rode for Raceface, there was a guy who was working for Julian doing some graphics, and his name was Chester, and he'd never mountain biked. He was a BMXer, and
take him to 19th hole. That's a good idea.
Exactly. So he expressed interest in trying mountain biking, and we've been doing laps on 19th hole, because that's where you could shuttle there back then predominantly. And my buddy Baker, who rode for Raceface at the time, was like, "Hey, you want to try mountain biking? Here, you can use one of my bikes." And he got sponsored by Transition this year, and he goes, "I got a couple bikes. Yeah, take one of them out. We'll take you riding." So we take Chester with this wild curly hair, big smiley, friendly guy, very creative artist, computer graphic artist, and whatnot. And we took him up there, and he didn't ride very far before he just egg beatered into the bushes. Off the bike went flipping, and we're like, okay, this was not a good idea to take him here. I thought he'd done some light biking, but he had done no mountain biking. But he'd BMX. He was a really good BMXer. Didn't know how to use a front brake, really.
Right.
Anyway, so he comes bounding out of the woods. Before we're looking at each other like, oh my God, we blew it. He comes bounding out of the woods, grabs the bike, runs down the trail, hops on it, and just starts going faster than he did before. And he's bouncing and pinballing all over, and he just ragdolls into the woods again. And we're in the same spot going. And we're like, okay, now we've totally blew it. Like, now he's going to be hurt. And he comes springing and flying out of the woods again, grabs the bike, same thing, runs beside the bike and hops on the bike, and away he's gone. And we're like, okay, we better go catch up to him. So we catch up to him, and then we find the bike on the trail. He's not around. He's in the bushes again. I swear, it must have been close to a dozen gnarly crashes he did. And he comes up and he just kept going harder and harder every time. He didn't care. He was crazy. And poor Baker was looking at his bike like, my bike. He didn't say a thing though. And we gave Chester his first mountain bike experience, and he was a warrior.
Wow.
I gotta say. And he made it to the bottom of the 19th hole. Bleeding amazing. And bruised and lumps and just... Yeah,
what a nutcase.
He was a hardcore nutcase. It was awesome. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Anyways, that's my 19th hole crash story.
There's quite. I bet you anyone around here has a 19th hole story. So
yeah, pretty much. Okay, so let's talk about closer at home. You live in Squamish.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
And I know you've done what was it called, the Diamond Head Trail Project, and you built the Legacy Trail. Is that the Legacy Climb Trail?
No.
Is that not?
No, I didn't believe that was Gravity Logic.
Was that Gravity Logic?
Yeah, well, there's different people built different sections of it. So the upper part was Gravity Logic. And then we, JoyRide and our crew built the Meadow of the Grizzly.
Meadow of a Grizzly?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not... Okay.
So we did the downhill.
I did some research and I did the wrong research. I love Meadow of a Grizzly, by the way. You know what? I'll be honest with you. I have a tough time not going to ride Meadow of a Grizzly whenever I go there. Because
that's good to hear.
I want to go and shoot, black diamonds and double black diamonds and get some shots and stuff and whatnot. But I never do. If I get anywhere close to that, I'm like, Meadow of a Grizzly. Because I'm a snowboarder, right? An ex-hard booter, racer. Yeah. I love the turns. Those turns on Meadow of a Grizzly are probably amongst some of my favorite in the world. Huh. When that is tacky and just awesome. Meadow of a Grizzly has a bunch of vertical. And I don't even know how many turns are on that. Like, there's a lot of turns. And
that was a tricky build. That was our working title. I probably can't say it on the air, but it wasn't. It was two bad words back to back. Because it was.
Beep, beep, beep. Censor.
Yeah. As soon as we started, it was nothing but rock and water. And we ended up building, I'd say at least 50% of that trail with a hydraulic hammer on an excavator.
Oh, wow.
And so if you stop on the trail, in random spots, just look around, you'll see the ditch is actually like hammered out rock to get water flowing away from the trail. Yeah. So it was
I've sucked into that ditch a few times.
Sorry. No, it was a very
God damn it, I'm in the
challenging build, and I would, as a builder, I call that a work in progress. That trail, we got the line in, pretty much the only place we could. The idea was to get, intermediates, like kids and moms, even like my wife. That was in my mind. I'm like, I want my wife to ride from the top. How can I do that? It's not going to be down Power Smart or 19th hole or Cakewalk and stuff like that.
No.
So that was the goal with that trail, was to build an accessible trail.
Yeah.
To come into the Squamish's network from the top. But, I would love the opportunity, and I, Sorka, the organizers there are great. They give me the opportunity, but I need the time and resources to go in there and keep working on it. I have another 10 years on that trail.
Oh, you've got some plans.
Well, it can be improved. So
yeah,
we'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you when I used to pave roads and stuff, and I'd drive a road, and I would look at the seams on the road, and I'd be like, that seam could have been better. Or my wife worked in the movie industry for 9 years, and then every time she watches a movie, she reads the script in her head. The door closed softly as the person exclaimed, blah blah blah. She can't just watch the movie. She goes into work mode.
For sure.
Can you ride a trail without going, there should have been better drainage onto that, or why didn't they side bank this, or that's off camber, or are you always thinking that, or
it's how your brain works, and it's maybe why trail builders are very critical of each other's, and but it's human nature. You can always do better than the next guy, or you can always, if you had more time even on your own work, you could do better.
Yeah.
And I think that's, if you look at that the right way, that's healthy. It challenges people, and then you're also accountable for what you build.
Yeah.
So it could be a positive way to looking at it.
You got pride in your work, right?
For sure.
And you're a passionate mountain biker, so you want it the way your mountain biker side wants it.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. I like that. So Meadow Grizzly, cut that off. How many machine hours and how many man hours would it take to build a trail like that?
Well, that's a hard question, but what I can say is the budget that we had, it cost twice as much to build it.
No way.
So yeah, it was ended up being a large investment.
Because it was rockier than you thought, or
oh yeah, for sure, no dirt.
Yeah.
And but you know, once you commit to a project, at least that's been our philosophy at JoyRide. You know, we stick to our numbers and make it happen. So that one ended up being a tough pill to swallow, but it's a community project, so we did it.
Yeah.
You know, the yin and yang of that. Sometimes you have other trails that you might price a little high, but then they go really well and you can make good money. So you just have to balance it out, and that's part of business.
You had to bite the bullet on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh, wow. Well, it does create a lot of people much happiness. So there's...
Yeah, and that's maybe why, in my mind, I'm like, man, I want to put more time and effort into that one, because in the end, we just had to get the heck out of there.
Yeah. Talk to me about more trails back at Whistler Creekside.
Yeah.
You've done some amazing work in there, and that's somewhere where I could bring my little girl. Yeah. And my wife and I take my little girl, and she charges that, and it's really helped her progression over the last little bit here. And it's fun just to go rip. Sometimes I bring my enduro bike instead of my downhill bike just to rip those trails, because the berms are just so flowy. And talk to us about that one.
Well, that when Whistler Blackcomb decided to expand to Creekside, something we were very interested in being involved in. A lot of it was my history here. Like when I first moved to Whistler as a skier, I lived right in Creekside, and I skied, all those runs and those tree lines in there, Kybers and McConkeys and all that. So I was like, yeah, the opportunity to work and create some trails in there is like a legacy type of opportunity.
Yes, for all time.
So yeah, we I think 4 or 5 years in there. We were involved in 4 or 5 trails, and a lot of it does get some criticism because it's blue trails with tons of berms and stuff. But again, we're managing speed and terrain. But that was the idea again, was accessibility. So
because you don't want to burn some kid's braking finger out or their brake pads. You want it to work and just to flow, and
it's far to get help out there, right? So there is some jumps here and there, but to build a jump trail like Dirt Merchant or A-Line doesn't make sense in the creek, because it takes the patrol way too long to get out to a critical situation, and also the clinic is a lot further from there. So
that's a factor that everyone's thinking about.
These guys are smart. That's part of the planning of a bike park, and kudos to Whistler and their management team. They know what they're doing, and the idea there was, hey, let's make this a kid friendly zone. So that's why they base a lot of the kid camps out of there.
Yeah.
Excuse me, and yeah, so that's lots of turns, lots of blue trails.
Oh, very cool. I love it. I love Creekside, and like I said, I like taking my girl there, and you can go ride Double Black Diamonds, and you can go there and just have a total change of pace. And it seems like it's like, is it damper down there or just cooler down there? Is it just my imagination? I don't even know.
Yeah, I think the forest is different, obviously.
Maybe just because you're going by some rivers.
There's more water on that side, bigger creeks. There is a chunk of the trails are in old growth, so that's definitely noticeable as far as the temperate and the condition of the forest. But the lower stuff is all in log zones, sort of like the Whistler Village trails on this side are all that's all been logged in the past. So
interesting. Okay, cool. Well, that's some nice work in there. Much props. Talk to me about heli biking and an alpine trail you built. They wanted to do some heli drops and not have everyone running everywhere through the alpine. And so Mt Barber, I believe you did some work on, and that's almost 6,000 vertical feet, isn't it? Or more than 5, anyways.
Yeah, so that's been a really interesting project and progression. Again, it's a part of the sport where, as a group, we're seeing opportunity, using helicopters to access terrain. So what was going on over in Pemberton, up in Tankwell, was they were doing heli drops up there. Not really commercial. It's sort of more like you could charter a helicopter and get it to drop you off wherever you wanted, and that was sort of word of mouth. People figured out that's
Just
a good
free
place
willy
to
it.
go, because there is from the tree line, there's an old trail called Tankwell, which was built in 1917 for mining.
Old horse trail.
Yeah, it's an old horse packing trail.
People packing gold out of there.
Yeah, there was mines. I don't know if they ever found gold, but there was mines and old shacks up there. So that's what the deal was. People were just riding, getting off on this alpine tundra, sensitive terrain, and free riding.
Yeah.
To meet the trail into the trees, and then riding the trail through the trees back to the valley. So it was a problem. It was going to get shut down, and we got involved with the Pemberton Wildlife Association and the Lil'wat First Nation, and then also the BC government, and that was an exercise in just let's do things right. Blackcomb Helicopters ended up getting involved because they had the commercial opportunities there, but so we built Mt Barber trail. It only took a few days. Really, it was easy building. With a big group, some volunteers and some paid, and we helied up there.
So you didn't have to do all of it. You just had to do the top section to get it onto that 100-year-old horse trail.
Exactly. The theory was, and still is, you get this as a mountain biker, if you build a fun trail, people are going to ride the trail instead of riding off into nowhere land. So
yes.
So that was the sales pitch to the government.
If you build it, they will ride it.
Yeah, exactly. And so next thing you know, everyone's riding a trail, and it was all good. And then something happened a couple years ago. I think there was there's a cabin up there, and it was a big party, and I don't believe it was mountain bikers, but mountain bikers took the blame, and they ended up shutting it down. So what's happening now is Blackcomb Helicopters is invested in creating a helicopter access trail here in the community. So they have permission to build one now, a legitimate one in the Pemberton area. So we're not, we're involved as consultants with them, but we're not building the trail. It's a local contractor, and that should be done ready for clients next year. And then I think,
is this an exclusive right here?
No,
on the Red Tippie podcast?
I don't. It's
just say yes.
It's public. Yeah. I don't think it's advertised yet. They weren't allowed to forever, but now they have the license to do it. They're allowed to advertise. So you'll hear some news out of Blackcomb this year.
Will it be as big as Mt Barber?
Yeah, it will be, and it will be where Barber was just specific at the top to bikes with some berms and rolling terrain, and then it went into an old mining trail. This will be top to bottom mountain bike trail.
Wow.
Yeah, probably. I think it's 6,000 feet, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a huge endeavor for these guys, and they're going for it. The McLean family, so
yeah,
good for them. But I feel there's, the helicopters are heavy in the fossil fuel burning side of things. There's still an opportunity to use them to grow the sport. We're also working with some other communities in opening up some terrain for helicopter biking.
Wow.
So, which I won't talk about at this time.
Okay, top secret.
That'll be volume 3.
Volume 3 of the BTP.
But no, it's like this thing of mountain biking is constantly evolving, and it's just really exciting to be a part of it. And we have another new branch happening, and it's growing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we've always had your finger on the pulse, and had the vision to go for it, and much respect to that, because even if people do have a vision, not everyone has the gumption to actually go for it and get hands on it and make it happen. So, much respect to that. I know you have a strong community feel, and building stuff like Meadow of a Grizzly, gives back to everyone in the sport, not just all the rad guys and girls, right? And I know that you're behind your community, and they love you for it. So,
Yeah. Just, Tippie is at the right place at the right time. So
yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, I got to say that, we love what you've done, and you and your crew and the people you've worked with, and you've created a lot of pleasure for a lot of people. So much love and respect to you.
Thanks, Tippie.
Over the years, and keep on charging.
Honored to be here sitting with you. So thanks.
Awesome. Well, we're going to wrap up with a dad joke. Have you got a dad joke for us?
Yes.
Oh.
Compliments of Mr. Dalby, my friend.
Okay, there we go.
Why did the man fall down the well?
Why did the man fall down the well? It was a quarter. I don't know why.
He couldn't see that well.
He couldn't see that well. Nice. I like it.
That's a good one.
My dad used to tell me, back when I was your age, I only had to look at a girl to get excited. Now, I don't see so well. Or you wouldn't believe who I ran into when I went to go get my new glasses. Almost everyone.
You're just pulling these out now, aren't you?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh, awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for coming on the Tippie podcast. Paddy Kaye, you're a legend, and you and your crew have, like I say, created a lot of pleasure for mountain bikers. You guys are the heroes of mountain biking, in my opinion.
Thanks, buddy.
Keep on charging. Good to have you here.
Yeah, cheers.
Right on. Paddy Kaye, the one and only.